And part A is just a simple grade 10 question. We can just do it right beside. If my first one is an x squared, there's only one option for that. It has to be x and x. If my last one is a 24, I have quite a few options. 6 and 4, 8 and 3, 12 and 2, 24 and 1. You have to go through all of those and see which one could make 5. 6 and 4? No. 8 and 3? Yeah. 8 and 3 makes 5. So I'm going to test 8 and 3. And I need a plus 5. So my inside needs to be the plus 8 minus 3. Do a quick double check. Does it still give me the minus 24 for the last one? It does. My first one's still an x squared, and my outside and my inside make 5. Perfect. Now B, obviously, is harder because it's bigger, has a whole bunch of stuff. So we're going to look at what you could do with B. First of all, I'm going to go through what your gut would probably tell you to do. Your gut would probably tell you to simplify, like distribute the 10, square this, and distribute the 2, combine all your like terms, and see what you get. That will work, and will take a lot longer. There is another strategy that can make your life easier. So, our main type of factoring that we did in grade 10, and that we've done a lot of, are these trinomial factoring, where you have something squared plus something times that something minus a number, right? So we always had something squared here and a something there. Do you notice in B that you have something squared and then that something again? But this time it's funny looking. It's an x minus 6. So what we do as a strategy is we pick any letter other than x. Jordan, pick a letter. B. And we say, let B equal the x minus 6. And then we rewrite the question, but instead of x minus 6, we write b's. So we substitute. And what that does is it changes it back to 1. Or like, hey, I've factored stuff like this before. This isn't going to be so bad. Do you recognize you have a common factor of 2? If you have a common factor, make sure you take that out first. It makes your life a lot easier. Plus 5b minus 24. And then is this hard to factor? Well, b squared. Your only option for the first one has to be b and b. Last one's minus 24. Anybody knows, hey, wait a minute, this is exactly the same as question A? Anybody noticed it? So if you notice something like that, you're like, oh my goodness, life is easy. It's just going to be b plus 8b minus 3, because it's exactly the same as part A. But if you didn't see that, you'd have to go through your multiples and double check and figure it out. So it was easier if we substituted the b for the x minus 6. We were able to factor, and now we can substitute back. So wherever I have the b's, I'm going to put back in the x minus 6 plus 8, and then x minus 6 plug back in there, minus 3. Simplify, minus 6 plus 8 will be x plus 2. And minus 6 minus 3 will be x minus 9. This is the easier option. If we can do a substitution, it'll work out perfectly for us. Option 2 is what your gut would tell you, which means you first have to multiply out x minus 6 squared. which will give me x squared minus 12x plus 36. And then distribute, what was it, a 10? 10x minus 6 plus 10x minus 60. And then the last number was minus 48. So option 2 is like you multiply everything out, you combine your like terms. This 2, of course, would have to get distributed to each thing. And you get 2x squared minus 24x plus 10x would be minus 14x. 72 minus 48. 72 minus 60, right? 72 minus 60 would be 12. Minus 48 would be minus 36. Then I factor out a common factor of 2. First one's an x, so it has to be x and x. The last one's an 18. Has to add or subtract to give you 7. And you see that it has to be 2 and 9 to give you 18. If I want minus 7, then 9 would have to be negative. The 2 would have to be positive. Those two are the same answers. But multiplying everything out, a little bit more work. If you make a tiny mental math error, it gets really bad really quick. Okay? So, talking about level of difficulty. Level of difficulty of this question's here. If you make a tiny mental math error, you can still get full marks if you do everything right with your mental math error. But usually one tiny mental math error triples, quadruples, makes your question 5 times more difficult. So my suggestion is if you don't want to do like super hard math, concentrate and don't make any mental math mistakes. That's easy to say, it's hard to do. So easy to lose concentration for a second and make a tiny little mental math mistake. Then your question becomes 5 times more difficult. So be careful with that. So of the two options, the substitution option makes your life easier. And we can do the same thing in part C. All right. Luke, pick a letter. Let t equal 2x plus 5. Because then we can rewrite this question as 3t squared. I always make my t's like curvy like that because sometimes t's look like plus signs. Plus 10 times t minus 8. I can tell you this one, I'm not going to do method 2, but it gets really hard. Even if you make no mental math mistakes, method 2 gets a lot harder. But this one, all right, there's my first one. There's my last one. You see with 3t squared, you only have one option. It has to be 3t and t. 8, you have multiple options. 1 and 8, 8 and 1. 4 and 2, 2 and 4. 8 and 1 and 1 and 8 don't work. I put the 4 here and the 2 here. My outside would be 12, my inside would be 2. This possibly could work. If I need a plus 10, I would need my outside to be the plus 12, my inside to be minus 2. Double check. Does it still give me my minus 8 for my last term? It does. And now we can substitute back. When I substitute back, I change my size of my brackets. I have like big brackets and littler brackets. So this will be 3, 2x plus 5 minus 2. And this one will be 2x plus 5 plus 4. If I distribute that 3, I'm going to get 6x plus 15 minus 2, minus plus 13. And here, 2x plus 9. If I multiply this out, you see that you would get 12x squared. Outside is 54 plus 26. And 13 times 9 is 117. If you did method 2, the last step of method 2 would be having to factor that. That is hard to factor. 117 is probably not in your normal times table, because you probably don't have your 13 times table memorized. 12 has 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. 3 options, not one option. Anytime there's multiple options for that first one, factoring becomes very, very difficult. You could use your grouping strategy from grade 10, but your grouping strategy in grade 10 would say you need to find two numbers whose sum is 80, and the product of those two numbers, well, what's 12 times 117? 1,404. This is very hard to factor. So this method of substitution is way faster in this example. Okay, questions for practice, circle 15 and 16.